Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the legal and government correspondent, and we have a repeat guest today. It is the Hudson City Mayor, Rich O'Connell. Rich, welcome to the show.
Good to see you.
So, Rich, see you in town from time to time. Saw you up at Pepperfest Parade.
Yeah.
And so we have you in at least once a year to try and give us updates. You've been the mayor since April of 2016. And time keeps marching on, and Hudson keeps progressing, and different issues switch which ones are on the front burner and the back burner.
Yeah.
So in no particular order, I think probably last time we had you on, I think EMS was pretty hot.
Yeah.
Now that's one that there has been some cooling of that issue. So what is the status of the EMS? Is there any more Hudson EMS?
Well, St. Croix EMS. So St. Croix EMS is continuing to serve our community right now. They are going through the transition period, the phase out, and on September 9th is the date that Lakeview is set to take over the EMS services here.
So if people have seen Lakeview ambulances already and the parades and so forth, that's
right.
Not been official yet, or they're?
Well, like I said, there's a transition period. So Lakeview they do have a presence at the hospital right now. They have been staffing 1 or 2 ambulances at the hospital, and of course they're already working with the town of Hudson and have at least since the first of the year. I think it actually goes back into late fall of last year that they've been working with the town of Hudson. North Hudson has also got an agreement with Lakeview, and I think Lakeview's been working out there a little bit. So they've been filling in shifts here for St. Croix EMS. As you know, part of the reason that we had to do what we did was because we were having staffing problems.
And just to refresh our audience, as far as when you say we had to do what we did, what is it that the city did?
What we did is that we voted to, first of all, to entertain proposals coming from different services, and we decided as a council to seriously talk with Lakeview, enter into some type of contract negotiations and see what that contract would look like, and then took it beyond that and took it to a vote to the council. It was a 3-3 tie. I had to break the tie. Okay.
So prior to that, I know that this had been extended out for well over a year, and the votes usually fell at least 4 in favor of further study before
right.
it would entertain any changing of the city-paid
right.
EMS workers. And so essentially, it has been kind of subbed out to the private sector, if you will.
Right. Yes. To the hospital.
To the hospital. And so. Is there a contract or some kind of like guarantees, warranties as to service and so forth?
Yes, there's a lengthy contract. In fact, Lakeview is operating in a variety of different municipalities. They've been serving Stillwater for, 25 years, something like that. They're in North
Well, that
St.
makes
Paul.
sense because they are in Stillwater.
Right. And they're part of the Health Partners group with the hospitals. But they've been serving Somerset as well as St. Joe for quite some time now. And they have served all those communities, every community, up to this point without a contract. And so yes, there is a contract that we negotiated with them, and they were more than willing to enter into that contract. And there are guarantees and there are certainties. The most important thing is that they're going to be guaranteeing that at least 2 ambulances will be staffed 24/7, 365. And we haven't been able to have that type of guarantee from St. Croix EMS because we've been having staffing problems here for some time.
So is that some kind of monthly payment from the city to?
No, no, we're not paying them anything. This is a service they are providing for free.
Okay. And so there's nothing that the city has going out of its budget now for this?
Nothing. No, there at some point in time after the transition on September 9th, we'll be discussing a transfer of equipment, a sale actually of our equipment to them. We'll see what they want. They've expressed an interest in some of the equipment, and some of the surrounding EMS services have also expressed interest in that. But other than that, no, there's nothing.
What's the length of the contract?
10 years.
All right. And is there any kind of review set up?
Yes,
or? Okay.
Regular reviews.
All right. Very good. And speaking of public safety, then what's the status of the fire station?
Fire station, we broke ground on that probably a month ago, and they're underway, and we're looking forward to having our brand new fire station on the hill on Ward Avenue, which was the southwest corner of the old golf course.
So it's right next to the old Ace hardware store?
Yeah, right in that area, exactly.
Okay. All right.
And
not far from where the old clubhouse was. Buildings that don't.
Well, those buildings were storage, maintenance equipment, things like that.
Well, those were erected, right after, and so it is accessible from what's the frontage road? Cooley.
Cooley, right.
Okay.
Yep. And so we're hoping to have that open in April.
Okay, that's great. And nothing new on the police front, I understand.
No, that's always good.
Chief is got at least a year under his belt.
Yes.
And so, but no big personnel changes there.
No.
So again, steady on the budget, so to speak, from that standpoint.
Right.
Public Works, folks have been experiencing the Vine Street work, which started almost immediately after school let out, and now we got school starting on Tuesday.
Yes.
Which is a week from today.
Yes.
And what's the anticipation there?
Well, right now, all that's being waited, what we're waiting on is the street to be lined, and we're expecting that it will be open for school. I've been assured by Mike Mraz, our Public Works Director, that it will be open for school, and hopefully before.
And so the significant striping goes on right near the high school with the turn lanes.
Exactly.
So exit lanes and whatnot. All
right.
Great. Anything else on Public Works? Are we good when it comes to the water treatment facility and so forth?
Everything's good with water treatment, and that comes up because we've got a lot of development, and people are always wondering what's our capacity,
Right.
And we just did a treatment study. We're going to be doing an upgrade over there, probably an addition that'll add about a third more capacity to what we currently have, and technological advances as well as that addition will take us out to the year 2040, and that's given additional projects, additional development that is in our comprehensive plan that has not begun.
Okay. You mentioned the comprehensive plan. We didn't talk about this off camera, but
No.
where is that now?
We have selected the group that's going to be helping us, and it's SEH, and they've done a number of, they've really been a contract engineer for us for some time and have done a lot of work with us and have done a great job. We had some very good qualified people come in with proposals, but we just felt a little bit more comfortable with SEH, mostly because they know the community better than the others.
What's the timeline? When do you expect to have the comprehensive plan?
Sometime next year.
2020.
2020, yeah.
And there'll be public hearings?
There's going to be public hearings, public input. There's going to be a lot of public involvement in that comprehensive plan.
Okay. And some historical context of the prior plans and so forth.
Exactly.
People will be able to see how that changed. Speaking of changing plans and development, let's talk about that a little bit. I know that there was some talk in the community about the type of development going on, whether it would be approved as far as number of stories, I think, and density was an issue, but we're talking about the property that's at the corner of Vine and Carmichael that was Hudson Township and has now been annexed into the city. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
The Atwood property.
The Atwood property.
Okay.
There's going to be single...
Size by which is...
About 40 acres.
About 40 acres,
right. And it's been leased out farmland for as long as I can remember.
Right, except for the last 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, kind of fallow the last 2 years. But
yeah.
So there's going to be single family housing along the interior perimeter. And I can't remember exactly how many units, but it's somewhere like 25 to 50. And then on the interior, there's going to be higher density. And we're talking about two different apartment buildings. They're going to be 3 stories. And originally the project came in at 5 stories. The buildings on paper look gorgeous, but big. I mean, they were huge. And just for context, we don't have any 5-story buildings in Hudson. The most.
But these would have been, when you say interior, these are closer to the corner of Vine and Carmichael than they would be at the height of the
Right.
of that hillside, closer to where the old
kind
golf
of in
course.
the middle of the lot.
Okay.
And then there will be some commercial on the perimeter, on the exterior perimeter.
Along the streetway.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the points of contention were, number one, the height. And they had proposed, like I said, 5 stories, and that's probably a little out of the realm of reality in our community. They had proposed, however, that the bottom floor was going to be retail. And I liked that. I think that retail on the bottom floor extends the longevity and vitality of a development like that. Usually in a community, if you're going to see deterioration, it generally starts with apartments. And the retail at the bottom level, I thought, would have been important. My position on that didn't prevail. But
So the main floor retail did not pass, and what about the height?
and they would have allowed it, but we would have had to go up another story, 4 stories on one building, and then 3 stories on the other. But in conversations with the community, people in the community and elsewhere, we settled on 3 stories for both buildings, no retail on the bottom floor, just strictly apartments. And of course, there's green space and things like that there. The developers have agreed to commit $2 million to renovations to Vine Street and Carmichael. That's important. But, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little bit, but right now, for at least the Carmichael side, I view that more as a Band-Aid than a permanent resolution to the problems that we have there, which gets us into the other issue that came up, two main issues, height and then density, traffic flow. Because as you know, especially Vine Street in the morning with people trying to get their kids to school, and even coming up to Carmichael to turn down to, or north rather, up to the middle school, it's pretty crowded. And there are safety concerns with that, people trying to cross streets, kids trying to cross streets to get to school, get across the street to be able to walk down to their respective school.
So do we have specifics on the Vine Street improvement at least?
Well, we do. I don't know that I can remember them exactly. I know the one thing for sure that, they're going to raise it so that dip is gone. They're going to try to level that out. And they're going to extend the right turn lane because that will ease some of the congestion flowing back in the one lane. So now you'll have 2 lanes, one of them being dedicated right turn lane like it is right now, but it will be extended out farther west to accommodate some of that traffic flow.
All the way to the Y? That would...
I don't know that it's going to go all the way down that far, but it's significant, at least I think all the way to the entrance to or entrance exit of the property on Vine.
Okay. And then Carmichael, because this plays into the other question, possible talk of a moratorium on annexation.
Right.
And when you told me that off camera, it just confused me a little bit because we've been hearing from the city the fear of running out of land forever. So if there's been a fear for running out of land within the city limits, why would we put a moratorium on annexation?
Well, and I don't know. I don't know that I've heard people talk about a fear of running out of land as much as it's a reality.
Well, it was the argument that stopped the high school south of, down in the dog track.
That was
area.
before my time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But
so,
anyway.
but we are. Geographically, we're at our limits right now, and that's currently why we're annexing additional properties. But everything that all the development, other than the TIF district in downtown. All the development is over on the east end of our city, which involves Carmichael. And so the Atwood property that we just talked about is going to put more pressure on. We just referenced that a little bit as concerns coming from the community, put more pressure on Carmichael as well as Vine.
From the north?
From the development.
Yep.
And,
right.
And then,
from
the north end of the city.
Right, and from the section of, from the standpoint of the interstate bisecting.
Right.
Or the newer part of Hudson, so.
Yep. You've got Carmichael Ridge that was not planned for in the comprehensive plan. That has put pressure on Carmichael. And you've got
Which is the old dog track, or the old golf course. Right.
You've got the dog track, which is going to be putting more pressure on there. With we're going to have at least 1,000 jobs out there in the next couple of years, and then right across the street, the Lee property that was just recently annexed, which is another housing development with single family as well as mid density right now, with probably some commercial out on the front. And all of that has put pressure on Carmichael. And Carmichael, people that travel it know that Carmichael cannot handle that pressure. Our traffic engineer has said we are maxed out right now. So in addition to those things, you have farther south, the Lockney property, which is just south of the dog track, and that's 70 acres. And that is scheduled in our comprehensive plan for some type of housing development. Everything east of Carmichael, north of the freeway, between the freeway and Vine Street, which is a big chunk of property, and that's where Walmart was looking at a super Walmart.
That's
Target
been over
was
10
looking
years.
at a super Target. And we can't do anything with that. In fact, Walmart walked away when they heard that the state, the DOT, was saying that they needed 30 acres for that exit ramp. And that's when they said that they weren't going to be doing anything at that interchange until at least the year 2025. A lot of people misinterpreted that, or let's just say interpreted that as meaning that they were going to do that job in 2025. But they said, no, we haven't scheduled it yet, and that was not a definitive date for getting that interchange done. So we have got tremendous pressure on Carmichael, and anything that we're doing is going to put more pressure on Carmichael, and we need a long-term solution to the interchange, to Carmichael going north, as well as south. North is our bigger problem right now, and we need that done. And we just had a meeting a week ago. We asked the DOT to come in. We contacted the commissioner and asked if we could have a meeting. They obliged us, and we had a couple representatives from the DOT come in. We had Representative Shannon Zimmerman and Senator Patty Schochner at the table, as well as representatives from the county and representatives from the city.
What was the goal of this meeting? Was to get the DOT to move this up on their priority?
Exactly. We need money spent on this now. This should be a priority. We are a growth engine, not just St. Croix County, but the city of Hudson are a growth engine for the state. Moratorium is a tough word. It's a word that we don't want to use, but frankly, we have to.
And moratorium technically would be on approvals. It doesn't stop people requesting annexation.
No, not at all.
In fact, the more requests that you get, the better certainty you have for the DOT as far as what needs to be done there.
Right. And we showed them exactly what's going on. One thing that we did ask is that they come back when school starts, because they need to see what happens at that intersection when going both north and west, getting to the high school and the middle school. They've got to see that. They were receptive. We were told by our elected officials that they are going to do what they can to get this escalated on the calendar for the DOT and try to get some money that would be designated, earmarked specifically for Carmichael and that interchange.
Yeah, I think, there's no doubt about it. I think good planning requires that the state be a partner in that. We can't just plan this on our own locally. Shifting back away from Carmichael, what would be the time frame on Vine Street? Because everyone knows that between 7:15 and 7:30, actually it was closer to 7 o'clock, that's just clogged. And if there's a proposal to be shutting that down, raising the road and all that, how are people going to get from the middle school to the high school?
I don't know that a timeline has actually been set yet.
Okay. So it will be a while. I mean, are they going to start the development closer to the old golf course and then work their way towards Vine, or?
I think that's, that I believe that's the case. Again, we're just at the inception of this right now, so pre-approvals and things like that. But generally these developments begin with the single family housing.
Right.
And so I'm sure that that's...
And it's nothing that's going to be totally built out within a year anyway.
No.
Okay. So what else did we have on our list that we went through? There was a little bit talk recently in the news, because we talked about water treatment facility before, and water quality is kind of an important thing with our National Scenic Riverway right next to Hudson here, and all of that TIF district being premised on maintaining the quality of the river. But
Right.
There's been some. You've been on TV recently, and
Yeah.
it's an outfit called Water Gremlins.
Water gremlin, and
Okay, let's start with real basic, because I don't know. I didn't see the segment. I know people who saw the segment, but just tell me what it is that we would need to know. Like, what is Water Gremlin?
Water Gremlin is a facility in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, and they have been in business for a long time. They're under ownership that came in maybe 15 years ago, and I think that they've let the quality of what they do slip. Water Gremlin makes fishing sinkers, and they also make battery terminals, lead battery terminals. And that's all fine. They ran afoul with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency in the process that they have for coating their lead. And they had some air pollution issues at first with a type of chemical that they used, and they were fined by the MPCA. But they entered into an agreement with them where they altered the chemical that they used and used a supposedly less harmful chemical, and began doing and this year began coating their product with this. I think maybe from March, April, some February, until just recently when it was discovered that they did not have the controls that they needed for that chemical at their plant, and they were leaking chemical into the ground and getting into the groundwater out in White Bear Lake, White Bear Township, out in that area. And so the Pollution Control Agency came in, and it's my understanding, fined them again. I think the total fines were $7 million, and shut them down. And while those discussions were going on to shut them down, they decided that they were going to try to negotiate a deal with a company over here in Hudson. I don't know that I want to get into the name of the company, mostly because of more recent developments today. But they had entered into an agreement with that company to do the coating here in Hudson, in our first industrial park. And when we caught wind of that, first of all, there was WCCO TV had been following this story and tipped us off about it last week. And then we started to get to work on this as well. And unfortunately, the DNR had given them a permit to be able to do this, and we don't know exactly, what the process was for reviewing this on the part of the DNR, and it's something that we had started to appeal yesterday or today, and we'll continue to appeal because we want this resolved in our favor right away. But in the meantime, this company has said that they will not be doing business with Water Gremlin, and they will be dedicating that space in their plant to warehousing and not doing the coating. So we avoided that, and I think that's a great success story for us.
So that's the latest development.
That happened at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Okay, and we're now at 4:40, so or 5:40.
5:40, yeah.
Yep. So is there an expectation that this is going to revive itself, or
No.
The appeal, though, is just to make sure that what is a dead issue remains a dead issue?
It remains a dead issue, and we also want to have that conversation, that dialogue with the DNR, and ask, what was your process, and why were we not involved in this? I firmly believe that we should have been involved in this process, certainly our community development department, even potentially the county. I mean, other people should have been involved in this decision to issue that permit, and we weren't. So we want to have that dialogue with the DNR.
Okay. So that was Water Gremlin. And then the other thing that had a little bit of more local news, the Joint Library Board, which has been, in the news for, 7 to 10 years. I think that this resurfaces every once in a while because there's agreements going back to 2003, 2004, and everyone thinks that things are going along well, and then somebody raises an issue, and then it gets attention. So we're back to this funding issue. But where are we at? Is the Joint Library Board in trouble right now with It's alliance between North Hudson Village, Hudson City, Hudson Township, St. Joe Township.
The joint library agreement is, let's just start by saying it's not in trouble. It's not in jeopardy. But we do have a county commissioner, local county commissioner, that would like to move St. Joe and the town of Hudson out of the joint library agreement. I don't fully understand why, but it would hurt us dramatically. The board has reaffirmed that we do not want that to happen. Those communities don't want that to happen. And this comes down to funding. It's a very complicated issue. It comes down to our pass-through funding coming from the county and some issues that we've had with them where the county has withheld 30% of our funding, taking us to the statutory level of 70% pass-through of taxes, our taxes to our local
inconsistent
library.
with past practice of passing through the full 100%.
That's right.
Okay.
And we are singled out. We're the only ones that's punitive. There's no doubt. But be that as it may, the library board and the 4 municipalities that form the joint library have agreed to move on. We've just said, we're good. You keep your 30%, we're good. We've been able to work without it. We've worked through it. Our library foundation has kicked in a dramatic way, and they're up and running and raising good money for our community library, and this would destroy all that effort. Absolutely destroy it.
Well,
so we've moved on, and
but this is a tax that the county imposes.
Yes, this is where it gets complicated. The county would be taxing any municipality that either does not have a library or does not fund their library to what they call the exempt amount. But if a community does tax their citizenry for libraries to the exempt amount, which is set by the state, by formula by the state, then the county will pass through that money back to the communities, and it's done, like I said, it has been at 100% for many, many years, going back to when Commissioner or Supervisor Darrell Standifer said the 70%, which is statutory, it doesn't make sense. We shouldn't be keeping 30% anyway. We should be passing 100% of that taxing authority back to the libraries.
So where's that 30% going if it's not going to?
It's going to other libraries. It's going to River Falls. It's going to Somerset. It's going to Roberts and New Richmond. And there
Are they already getting their 100%?
Yes, they are. And now they're getting our 30%.
Okay. So explaining how that would be fair is going to have to be discussed at another segment we'll do. And you'd prefer that, right, as far as allowing, if there's another side to this issue?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody should hear, as many sides as there are here.
Okay.
But like I said, right now, it's a solution in search of a problem. There is no problem. We have agreed. We've moved on. You want your 30%. You feel compelled to take that from us. Keep it. We're happy with the joint library the way it is, and we're happy with the direction that we're headed, and so we're good.
All right. So what do you see over the next 6 to 12 months then? I don't know when we can get you back on again, but people have to stay tuned to their local news and whatnot, but what do you see as far as issues? I mean, state aid still remains to be kind of something that's almost non-existent for City of Hudson.
Right.
And that's probably not likely to change?
No, the formula at the state has got to change before we get any additional money here. We think that we're treated very unfairly. And we do a great job with our commercial development and with our business parks, and the formula has penalized us for the good work that we've done. And it has penalized us for many, many years. I think our share is like $170,000 that we get in state aid compared to like River Falls, which gets over $2 million.
Right, it's 10 times more than 10 times more.
Right. And even I think New Richmond and areas like that get more than we do. What do you do, right? I mean, I've talked to Representative Zimmerman about it, and he agrees it's not fair. how do you move it? You know, it's just an old.
And they just got done with a biennium budget, so it's not likely to
Right.
get touched. Certainly not before elections next November.
Right. One thing we touched on TIF. Okay, so for anybody watching, that
just
means
gonna go there,
tax
yeah.
increment financing.
Yes.
And it is a tool to help us with development. The most recent TIF districts, the last one that closed out was the business park up the hill.
So now all those
down
folks
Hanley.
are paying the full,
They're full bore.
property tax.
Yep. So the next TIF district is the dog track. And I think that we had talked about this maybe in the past, but if not, with valuations the way they are right now, the city's take on property taxes from there is $25,000. School districts is $50,000 from that piece of property. Put it into perspective, if we get that valuation where we think it's going to be, in fact, still conservatively, I think $200 million valuation on that property over the next few years is still conservative. I think it could go as high as $250 million, but let's just use figures of $200 million. When that is completely realized on the tax rolls, the school district will realize $1 million or $2 million from that piece of property. From 50,000, the city's share would be $1 million from 25,000. So it's a nice development. It's a great development.
Looks
for our
like a
city.
great building that's there. It's huge.
Yeah, and that's just one of two. They're going to start a second one here pretty quick, same size. That's Phillips
That
Medisize.
further south is
It's going to be kind of attached to the building that they have, and then their next phase after that building is another. Those buildings are 200,000 plus square feet, just the footprint. And manufacturing capability is like on the first, this building is 280,000 square feet. The next building will be about 240,000 square feet. And then they're going to put in their Global Innovation Center, which is another 100,000 square foot building. I referenced this earlier. We're talking, at least 1,000 employees out there for the entire, not just Phillips, but when this whole thing is done, and potentially up to a couple thousand.
What about the
employees.
baseball park? Is that going to be up and running
Baseball
for the
park,
season?
we're assured that it's going to be up and running for next season, and we're hoping to break
Is that
ground
in
on
the far
pretty soon.
southeast corner?
It would be in the northeast corner,
Northeast corner.
right where the dog track itself was before the oval.
Okay.
So we're looking forward to that. Baseball is going to be fun. TIF district downtown. Okay, so that is the next TIF district, and that's been approved. And some of the development you're seeing down there already, the River City Center, as you're coming into town.
What would
is gonna
give,
be a
if you
facelift.
give it a percentage of what was the purpose of the TIF district and what was foreseen and what's been started? Is it 10%, 30%? What's been started compared to
Downtown?
what the potential is?
I would say, well, the one building, the Valley Cartage building, is part of that TIF district. That was the very first building that was done. That was begun, and they just did a open house on that. If they're
It's right
not
next
moved
to the
in-
beach. Right.
Yep, and if they're not moved in, it's going to be happening here real soon. I know that I was in there. I mean, it looked like they're ready to go. I don't know if they've moved all of their personnel in there yet. So I would say maybe 20%.
Right.
Okay. River City Center is happening right now. That's about a $7 million project on the facelift, and of course they're opening up to the river, which is my big thing. Our river towns have closed turned their backs to the river,
Right.
and it's what should be the front door has become the back door, and so
That's reversing down by the boat landing.
yes, it is. They're putting in doorways down there, and they're going to have access from First Street into that building, which is great. It's my understanding they're going to offer up office space and retail space.
Is there
down
anything
there.
going to be put in to try and prevent flooding of First Street?
Yeah, they had to do that in order to. The street itself.
Yeah.
So we're talking about additional drainage. Apparently, it's just a backup problem.
Okay.
It's not a level problem. But having said that, one of the next things you're going to see, hopefully this fall, is the boat landing, the boat launch, which right now is, let's just say it's too low and it's too small. So the river goes to no wake, where you cannot have a wake from a boat on the river at 83 feet. It's 683 above sea level. We call it 83 feet. All right. Our boat launch closes at 81 feet. Normal pool out there is right around 76 feet. So there's about 5 feet from normal to when we pull the docks and don't let anybody come in and launch. But there's still another 2 feet where you can still be on the river with a wake, right? Where we're not able to access, our folks aren't able to access the water. We're giving up a lot there, not just our citizens that aren't able to access the water, but we're giving up tournaments. Tournaments have turned away because they can't get out there. They'll still fish even in no wake, but we've got to be able to get them on the river. So we're going to be looking to raise the lot up to just above, this is my take on it, just above 683. So we would still be able to launch when the river's at no wake, and we would expand the parking lot to be able to get more people in there.
Okay.
And that will be the beginning of work on our lakefront project enhancements.
Still got a couple blocks moving up then towards the north.
Right. And that, of course, that encompasses that project for Lakefront Park, goes beyond the dike all the way up to the railroad. Okay. So just the bay, just the other side of the dike up to the railroad.
Chances of downtown parking ramp right now?
We are talking with two developers that have projects where they need parking and they need ramps. So that leads us into the whole parking issue, I guess, with the new parking meters and stuff. But
when do they go online?
And that's an issue that has to do with the software company. It's a billing issue, so we're hoping that sometime in mid to late September, beginning of October. We're going to be charging the same amount of money for the parking meters as what we charge right now. We're adding 300 additional spots that are not currently metered.
Right.
All right, so
what's that in percent? How many are metered now?
It will double the number.
That's what I figured. And of those 300, only about 200 are working anyway. So.
I think that's high.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But that's right. But so the two big changes. Number one is that the number of stalls that are metered will be doubled, and we're going to be enforcing in the evening up until 8 o'clock. So we're,
how many days a week?
6 days a week, not on Sunday, including Saturdays.
Okay.
And that is to try to create turnover, because right now there is no enforcement during dinner hour, and that's the toughest time to find a parking spot. And if we can create turnover down there, then we're hoping to mitigate in a big way the parking problem that we have. And if that doesn't work, it will work to some extent. We're confident of that. We're hoping it works to a great extent. If that doesn't happen, then we will start focusing more of our attention on these developers and the parking ramps that they're proposing.
Right, but right now, no rush to get into those plans until you see how the new system starts
We would
working.
like to, frankly, but their developments have become complicated because of the work that's going to be done in 2021, tearing up 2nd Street.
Right.
That whole summer, and they don't really care to be opening up a brand new development, a brand new project just in time for the roadways to be shut down,
right,
and their access limited. So they're kind of putting off their plans for opening anyway.
Yeah, is 2nd Street traffic going to be diverted to 1st Street?
First, and probably a couple different routes. Yes.
Okay. Well, so a lot going on.
Yeah, it's a lot of
over the last
information.
3 years, you've been mayor, 3 years plus, and the next couple of years promise to be same.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else that we didn't touch on?
No, not that I can think of. It's a lot, and there's a lot more detail for most of this, but it's just kind
absolutely.
of
So people just continue to. They should contact their city council people if they have questions.
Or me.
And how do they reach you?
Through the city website. They can either leave a voice message for me at my city telephone or on my city email.
And the city email, do you know it?
It just changed. It's, I believe, mayor at Hudson.gov.
.gov.
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right.
Hudson.gov.
Well,
or Hudson WI. I don't know. Hey, go on the website.
go on the city website and you'll find Mayor Rich. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for coming on.
All
Mayor.
right, Jamie.
Always
thank
a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Anytime.
And thank you again for your service
I appreciate
to this
that.
community and helping Hudson become the great community it is. All right. And thank you for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal.